Friday, 1st of March, you're back in business with me, Harsha Subramaniam. We're here decoding Budget 2013 for you. Shailesh Haribhakti, Chairman of BDO Consulting, joins in on this conversation. Also with us is Kaushik Chatterjee. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining in. Shailesh, I'll start with you. From a taxation standpoint, what does this budget do? Does it make life easier for a foreign investor? Is the ghost of GAR behind us?
The ghost of GAR is very much alive. The grandfathering provisions have made it now mandatory to make sure that all the planning that you want to do must happen right now.
Sure.
To cover the issue of the foreign investor, the tax residency certificate not being a final proof of where your residency is going to open up a whole host of issues and litigations which will create an uncertain environment. But I must say that for the first time I'm seeing a shift of focus, not on the 2,000 rupee benefit to the 2 to 5 lakh taxpayer or the 10% surcharge, but on bringing people into the tax net. I think the time has come today for an honest taxpayer revolt, which says that why should we just be the only honest people?
Sure.
About 3 crore people.
Sure.
What happens to the 10 crore others who have phenomenal amounts of income which just goes unreported? And I think that move has now become very, very important.
Okay.
We can afford a 20% tax rate if we get 3 times more SSCs in the tax net.
All right. I just want to pick up the point about the tax residency certificate. It now says it's a must, but it's not enough. And this whole concept of a beneficial ownership has been brought into place. What does that really mean?
It means uncertainty. It means that if your entire business is predicated on coming through a particular tax jurisdiction into India, and assume that there is a very beneficial tax treaty between that jurisdiction and India, then it is important for you to establish that you are a tax resident of that jurisdiction. If now that is going to be called into question, and there is going to be a roving inquiry on how did that whole thing get accomplished, then you are going to be hard pressed to prove that you indeed are a tax resident of that jurisdiction. And therefore it will be time consuming, uncertainty. In the meantime there will be demands for tax payment, a allowance of the relief under the double tax avoidance treaty. All of these consequences can be feared. I'm not saying they'll all happen. I'm saying they can be feared.
It's just uncertainty again.
That is what causes uncertainty.
All right. Kaushik, do you think the GAR issues have been put to rest? Also, are you satisfied with what you heard on the GST front?
Yeah, on the, I think GAR has moved on after the Shom Committee recommendation, and I think that recommendations were pretty pragmatic and will be incorporated, and there is a timeline set for it. So that should ideally be on autopilot at a point in time. As far as the DTC is concerned, he said that he will come. He's working with the Standing Committee on Finance, and he will come back. If I heard him right, he said before the end of the budget session, which will be pretty soon. On GST, he has made his commitment in the sense that he set aside 9,000 crores is what he said, and therefore the reaction from the states needs to be on equal footing, and I'm sure that the states finance ministers committee, which is there, and the empowered committee will take appropriate steps, because that can have a huge multiplier effect and efficiency effect on the economy. So I think he's made his moves, not certain or done deal as yet, but if we move forward on specific executions, then I think we will get to where we are going on tax reforms, and this has been on the cold for some time, and we need to get it done and get it implemented.
Sure. Shailesh, on the specific issue of GST, he's right. He's put his money where the mouth is. 9,000 crores for compensation has been put in place. He says the ball is now in the state finance minister's court. But were you expecting a more specific timeline perhaps for GST?
No, it's not within his control. He has to bring in the legislation. which is the constitutional amendment which we need. And the biggest resistance is coming because the state chief ministers, who are, by the way, more powerful than perhaps the prime minister, they are now resisting because they feel that some of their power to tax will be reduced. But more difficult is the power loss that people at even lower levels are feeling. The city, the municipal corporation, the Panchayat Raj institutions. So we'll need to gather and take the entire country together and say that let's forget all this. If we can get 1% more GDP simply because things become faster, easier, India becomes one trading zone, and if we can bring home the fact that paying this tax is beneficial to you, then there's a big outcome that everybody can look forward to.
I'm going to take a break on that note. When we come back, we talk about direct taxes code. Has the budget addressed it at all? Back in business, 2 minutes. We're back in business and we're decoding Budget 2013, specifically on the issue of taxes. Shailesh, we were talking about GST. I want to focus now, talk about the direct taxes code. He hasn't, tweaked too much with taxes at this point in time. And he's reiterated his commitment that this government will move on DTC. What is the sense that you're getting?
I think the DTC is in place. The framework for DTC is now ready. It will come before this House of Parliament. And my suspicion is that it might go back into committee if there are major changes which are being proposed. So everything will depend on whether there is a big shift in the thinking as finance ministers have changed. So everything will be driven by that. If there is no revertal back to the committee, then I believe that we should see the DTC coming in place.
One area of concern was the Shom Committee specifically spoke about the retroactive tax on the overseas tax transfers. This budget was completely silent on that one.
Absolutely.
Is there any clarity at all on how indirect transfers are going to be done?
To the credit of the government, I must say that the Shom Committee's recommendations were very positive and they were accepted very positively, which is a very important thing. And the finance minister, for the first time I have seen in the history of budget listening, that he said there are 3 occasions on which I might make clarifications, might make modifications. When I'm bringing in the Shom Committee recommendations, when I'm passing the finance bill, when I'm looking at DTC. So he has left all those windows open for the clarification. Maybe that is the explanation why there was no mention of it in the budget. That is my hope. And I hope that all of us as honest taxpayers can believe that some good and some stability will come so that the atmosphere is not completely covered by uncertainty.
What did you make of this increased withholding tax on royalty for foreign subsidiaries? On one hand, you're trying to seek foreign direct investment. Do you see that as a negative?
I see it as a big negative. Because ultimately, what is India's biggest exportable item? It is brain power. And we have seen that. Now, to fuel that brain power, the biggest thing you need is software. You need those techniques, you need those inventions, those findings. Intellectual property. Now, if you tax them, I would have been quite happy if a mid-rate of 15% was chosen, so that it was not that people who were trying to dodge treaties got an advantage. But if it was, when you make it 25%, you're putting a huge dampener. People will start rethinking whether this technology should flow because the tax consequence is so high. Couple that with this uncertainty about tax residency certificate and which jurisdiction you're coming from. So when you put all of that together, it causes anxiety.
The other big area of concern was on transfer pricing litigations. We've seen several tax experts like yourself come and say, hundreds of transfer pricing litigations, millions of dollars at stake. The budget didn't I don't expect the budget to solve it, but at least didn't address it.
I don't think it needs the budget to address it. I think there is a learning curve which is going on. Everybody is learning. what I'm sensing on an overall basis is that the whole world's double tax avoidance treaties, transfer pricing mechanisms, information sharing mechanisms are trying to converge. Now that is a very, very big trend that we have picked up over the last 2 years. And we are seeing that everybody wants to make sure that if you are earning an income, you will be taxed. And the sharing will happen based on negotiation between countries. Now it has gone to that level. So when we see the real effects of this convergence, we will be able to capture the transfer pricing rules in such a way that they are transparent, that people don't. Transfer pricing does not mean you transfer out of the tax net. It means that you get into some tax net.
Okay, last round of questioning, gentlemen. Kaushik, all in all, how do you rate this budget?
Yeah, that's a difficult one always because you're basically not rating the budget on the day of the budget day. It's his budget speech, which I must say he had a very strong level of passion and determination, which was very welcome. And if you want me to rate his budget speech, it would be more like 7.5 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
He's very carefully, Kaushik, he's rating the budget speech. I can rate that at 8, but the budget I would rate at 5.
All right. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave there. Many thanks for joining us with your perspective. Shailesh, Haribhakti, Kaushik Chatterjee on the budget, on what the budget delivered so far. It's a bit of a break in business, but on the other side, we also get you a corporate view on what this budget has meant for corporate India. Adi Godrej, chairman of Godrej Group, Nainal Al Khidwai, the president of FICCI, will join us on the other side. Back in business, 2 minutes.